there's an issue that's been on my radar for a couple of months, and it is a commission that has been set up by the Canal and River Trust, CRT, the authority responsible for managing the canals and some of the rivers. And I'm sort of off the top of my head here. I haven't prepared notes or anything, so do forgive me. This could be a bit waffly. So they've set up this commission, and it's put me in a very negative frame of mind in terms of the long-term future of boating, for me personally, because I think the motivation for it, and this is just my take on it, you know, obviously I could be completely wrong. My take on it, in terms of why they're doing it, what they're trying to achieve, is that they're not happy with the boat numbers in London and the behaviour of some continuous cruisers. So some continuous cruisers, and I'm not having a go at these people, by the way, because I've done this a couple of times in my boating career. Some people like to be in a particular location, whether it be for family, you know, they've got elderly family or young family relatives, I don't know, all sorts of family. Other people will have a local job, you know, often there'll be an NHS worker of some sort. And, you know, there's different motivations. But many of these people want to live on a boat, but also want to stay within a limited area. Now, there's a sort of an unwritten understanding. There's been a sort of a semi-official understanding, let's say, between CRT and the boaters, that if you're furthest 2 points apart in any given year that you've travelled, you know, the furthest distance between 2 points, your range, if you like, your maximum distance. Oh, I'm stumbling. Do you know, lack of sleep, that's what it is. I just hardly got any sleep. Restless night, early morning. Anyway, you know, I know, you, Crimea River, right? So, what a lot of people have done, a lot of working people, I might add, you know, their solution has been to buy a boat, move on to a narrowboat, because the CRT licence fee, even though it's gone up for a 50, 60 foot boat, it's still, you know, £1,500 per annum. So for somebody who's working, that's affordable. There are other bills, but you know, that's not what this is about. So it's cheap accommodation, and a lot of people have cottoned onto this. And there are now something like 5,000 boats in London. Apparently, you know, in the early noughties, I suspect it wasn't such a problem. There were lots of boats around, but you know, you could find a spot. It was okay. It was manageable. But after about 2010, and certainly, you know, the last 15 years or so, it's exploded. It's literally exploded. So now you've got 5,000 boats. So that's the situation, apparently. And I believe CRT want to stop it. And so my worry, this is only a concern, you know, that I think, something I think they'll be thinking about. How do we stop the overcrowding in London, or at least reduce it? And I think one of the things they're going to do is, I think they're going to impose a price increase, a surcharge for London. You know, it'll be a fair bit, it won't be a small charge. So they'll hope that will reduce the numbers. But I personally don't think it will, because it's £70 a week, £300 a month. It's a lot for somebody, but if you've got a couple living on a boat, let's say, a young couple, and they're both working, again, they're going to be able to afford that cost. They're not going to like it, and I don't blame them, but they're going to be able to afford it. So on its own, a charge increase won't solve CRT's perceived problem that they believe they've got. And what about the people who've made expensive purchases and bought these boats? on the basis and the understanding that they would be able to live this lifestyle, move every couple of weeks, and 20 miles per year as their overall range, and everything would be fine. And now suddenly it's not fine anymore. They'll feel they've been stitched up. So even though it wasn't official, I know people are going to say, but it wasn't an official agreement. Yeah, it wasn't. Semi-official. I've read a few things about it. It was mentioned in several court cases, this 20-mile business. So it's semi-official. Anyway, look, it's kind of not the point. What I'm saying is you've got a lot of young people who've bought into this lifestyle at high cost in terms of the purchase, and may now be told, well, you'll have to pay more. You'll have to, you're 1,500 a year, not enough. We want another £100 a week, whatever, who the hell knows what it might be. It might be £2 per night, The wind's getting up a bit. And also, by the way, I want to get to my destination. I'm going to the Black Horse to meet up with a fellow boater, lovely chap called Kevin, South African, would you believe? I've met several South Africans on the British water. It's not a thing that you would expect many South Africans to be interested in doing. There's loads of them, thousands of them. Anyway, no, there aren't, but there's a few. So what will CRT do? What are their options to address what they see as a problem? So the first thing is to charge. I think they'll put a surcharge of some sort for being within the London zone, which they'll define. And I think that won't solve it completely. So what they'll also do is, I believe, they will try to impose a bigger range of movement for continuous cruisers. Something like 100 miles, let's say. I don't know what it might be. If their ambition is to stop people living and working on boats in London, then it could be that it would be 150 miles in a year, which is no problem in a year if you're cruising around. But if you've got a local job to hold down, you can't do it. And that's the point. That's the point. They want it to be so that you can't work, you can't hold down a local job, you can't live this lifestyle of being on a boat but staying fairly close to a town, say, for your family and your friends, or your job, more usually job, Again, for the last time, amazing viaduct. So back to this commission thing. So the commission was set up in January. I think they've had one meeting, end of January, they've had one meeting so far, I think. They'll probably be meeting monthly, I would think. They're going to report in September. So in September of this year, which is 2025, we'll find out what their intentions are, what they're trying to achieve. There is a boater, a representative of boaters on the commission, but there's no sort of formal thing, information about how loud their voice is going to be, how influential the boater's representative will be. So it doesn't mean that much that there is a boater on that commission is sort of where I'm coming from. So getting back to their recommendations, I think they'll recommend that movement ranges are increased, right? And I think it'll be minimum 100 miles. It might be 2, might be 150. I don't know. That's sort of what they're going to do. But the canny boaters, if it was just increasing the range, that would not solve their problem, because what the boaters would do is take a week off work and they would travel their 100 miles in one go and then come straight back to London. So the recommendations, I think there'll be a minimum movement, but they will also build in a requirement that it should be phased over months, a number of months. So you won't be allowed to do your 100-mile range in, say, a week and then go back to London and live as before. There'll be some sort of requirement prohibiting you from going back to a previous mooring place. So, getting back to the recommendations that I think this commission might well come out with. One will be an increase in an additional cost, a surcharge to moor your boat, just for physically to be in London. It won't be if you're moored in a given, but it'll just be if the boat is physically within the zone, you're getting charged. There'll be that. I think that's what they'll look for. The second thing, they'll look for a longer range of travel per year. So it'll change from 20 miles to perhaps 100 or more. But the final piece of the jigsaw that will really, I feel, hurt people who try and stay in a location, as so many boaters try to do in London, to hold down a local job. And, many key workers, NHS workers, they're just, they're doing important, significant jobs. They're helping that community to function. And they're trying to live. They just want some sense of independence, their own space that they can manage, rather than if they don't fancy like living in a shared house. And let's be honest, not everyone does. Not all of us want a room in a shared house. Some people want an independence and a sense of space, manage their own space, and that's what the boat gives them at an affordable cost. And that option, I think, is going to be taken away from them. CRT are going to try and take it away from them, I think, to solve the overcrowding problem in London. So I believe what they'll do is they will stop you going right back to a previous mooring spot or area. So once you've been in one location, you'll have to continue moving in one direction. You won't be able to go back, and there'll be a several months time limit placed on that. Before you can move back, and I think that's what's going to snooker the liveaboard community who want to travel a limited distance. That's going to snooker them. This thing about you can't go back to a previous location, that's going to hurt them, because you might have to cruise your boat gradually. For instance, if you're a London boater, what you'll be doing is cruising your boat in a series of moves as the year goes by, up to say Milton Keynes, maybe further. Maybe the requirement will mean you've got to go further, maybe as far as Braunston, Daventry, that kind of thing. That depends how they define the range. That does depend. So we'll see how that pans out.